Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. Today we have Gord Lemon from the Real Estate Investment Institute back with us once again, and we are in episode number 157. And Gord, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
It's my pleasure. Always great to be with you guys.
Yeah, today we're jumping into a topic that, I'm really passionate about. We've had you on the last two episodes. We had some really great discussions. But before we go into today's episode, I wanted to share a little bit of a story with you guys that's going to sort of illustrate how important this point is. As a broker owner, I took over Sutton Group a number of years ago, and in the first year, when I was sitting in the brokerage seat as a broker, I had one of my top realtors come into the office. Now, this realtor was a veteran. He's been in the industry for over 40 years. He was 86 years old at the time when he came to my office. And he started telling me about a new listing that was going to go live on the market in the next couple of days. So, of course, I put my broker hat on, I leaned forward, and I got excited. And he looked at me and he said, David, I don't think you understand. I'm not here because I want to be here. I'm here out of necessity. I'm taking this listing out of necessity. I don't know how I'm going to make my mortgage payment next month. And that news really hit me like a brick of bag of bricks. I didn't know how to react. I was shocked. Here I have a 40-year veteran, somebody who wrote the book on listing presentations, somebody who mentored um, 10 of my other top realtors at the brokerage, my top 10 realtors at the brokerage. I mean, this guy sold more real estate in the last 40 years than, the average realtor out there. So how did he get himself into a situation where being 40 years in the business at 86 years old, he's still having to sell real estate out of the necessity of having to pay his mortgage payment? And to me, that illustrates, the struggle that the average agent is really feeling out there. It put everything into context for me as a broker owner, and I vowed to myself to do everything I possibly can to help my realtors think about real estate differently, to help them level up, and to make sure that they're never in a situation like that ever again.
It's a great story, David. And I know exactly who you're talking about because I dealt with them over the years, did many transactions for him and dealt with them on refinances personally for his own property. And there isn't a classier gentleman and a better agent around. And I know the success of so many other realtors in your office can be totally attributed to his expertise. And he showed them how to do it. But
Wrote the book,
he
right?
would have benefited from this podcast 20 years ago to show them there's alternate ways of using your expertise and creating a better lifestyle for you.
Yeah, and I think David, you nailed the nail on the head. Like no classier person out there, no person that gave back more. Um, just an amazing person, and seeing that person in that situation at 86 years old, it broke my heart. But it really paints the picture so clearly of you know. I wish that was the exception in our industry. I really do. Like I really wish that was the exception, but that's the rule. And the opposite of that is the exception. And that's one of the reasons why, Gord, I am so passionate about this topic and about, helping realtors really make sure that that's not the rule. Let's make that the exception, and let's make that an exception on such a small scale that, we're really helping realtors level up. And not only that, but, everybody in this industry is sitting 3 feet away from gold. Everywhere you look, you see billions and billions of dollars in real estate. Who owns it, right? And why are we not looking at the average transaction from a different lens? Like, let's look at it from a leveling up together perspective. Let's celebrate building wealth together. Let's all take our clients on this journey. And we all know that our clients want to go on this journey. They understand that their home is their biggest investment.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, no matter how successful, realtors are essentially self-employed, and the day they stop selling is the day they stop earning. And unlike many professions, there's no pension, no retirement plan, no safety net, as per the story you mentioned about that gentleman. And we've all seen, and I know you've got agents, you know, in your brokerage earning multiple six figures, but living paycheck to paycheck because their income depends entirely on their transaction volume. And the moment something disrupts their business, like whether it's a market slowdown or a health issue or even burnout because they're on the hamster wheel day in and day out, they can be in trouble. And that's why I tell, and you know, we preach at the Real Estate Investment Institute that real estate's the best business in the world if, and a big if, you own it. So we sell, you know, as realtors, you're selling incredible wealth building assets every day, yet so many realtors own any themselves, and that needs to change.
So how do they start? Like, what's the blueprint? How, you know, like you need to start the process somewhere. You got to make that decision. So how do you, a realtor that says, okay, I get it. Thanks, Gord. Thanks, David. You've convinced me. Now
Yeah.
what do I do?
For sure. So the first solution, obviously, people are looking for passive income. So that continues whether you're working or not. And, you know, that's no better place to do that is than the very industry that you already understand. And realtors, like David mentioned, you have an unfair advantage because you've got insider knowledge, you've got access to deals, you've got access to industry connections. And if you don't take advantage of that, you're essentially leaving millions of dollars on the table. So to your question, David,
Gord, it has to start with education.
well, obviously it has to start with education. And, you know, spending a small amount of money on the education that we provide will, I mean, you'll multiple X that in being able to help your clients and start doing the same for yourself. You won't even think about the money that you spent on your education because it'll become, you know, what you will learn will become a building blocks that will continue to grow because the knowledge that you experience, you'll have a different mindset and you'll approach the business completely differently from every aspect, from your client conversations to the way that you're building, you know, your own real estate portfolio to how you advertise. Everything will change.
And I'm not a tax expert at all, but I think the fees you're going to pay for that education are going to be tax deductible too.
100%.
It's a business expense.
100%.
So it's going to cost you a lot less than the minimum amount that it is in any event. And, you know, take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Gord, I remember the first time you went through a property analysis and you tied in the different income or profit centers.
Profit centers, yeah.
And you know, you explain that there's 8 different ways of profiting or you know, leveling up your income by investing in real estate.
Yeah.
I went on the shopping spree, you know, and I was
did.
one of those realtors that I resisted for a really long time. You know, I really did. I didn't want to, first of all, I flipped, right? So I bought and I flipped, which, you know, I severely regret because if I kept those properties, they would have kept increasing in value. And, you know, it's like the million mile mark starts with a single step. You know, if you keep making small steps every day in your business, just like you keep making small steps every day towards your financial goals, you're going to reach that goal a lot faster than if you try to bite off these big chunks at a time and
Yeah.
have to pay capital gains and have to split your profit with the government as opposed to buying and holding for a long time. So, once I saw the property analysis and I saw it really come to life on a piece of paper and how the 8 profit centers affect, your ability to build wealth over time, like I was all in. And ever since then, David Korman can attest to this, I've bought a lot of real estate. And I'm going to continue to buy and hold and invest for the long term because you systematically build wealth over time. And it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter how busy you are today or how many vacations you go on or how much you sleep, right? Or whether you're sick or not, you're still building that wealth over time systematically and automatically. And that's the key to, really consistently going towards your financial goal in life.
For sure. And David Korman, you think he's given me any, given me a thank you check, anything like that? It's a thankless business, I tell you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm no question about that. I'm sure he's never thanked you for any of this.
Hey,
That's
I'm
a
thanking
given.
you right now.
But okay, let me ask you this though, because I know I'm just trying to put myself in the seat of a realtor. I'm just a dumb lawyer, but we don't do a very good job investing in things like this either. But I imagine the hardest part for anybody listening to this that's never done it before, like if you're a realtor and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're saying, okay, I get it. Gord convinced me, David Gorski just convinced me, David Korm doesn't know what he's talking about, but I get it. I know I should start, but how do I start? I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How do I have that initial cash or initial capital that I'm going to need to start with my first investment? Like, I think that's probably going to be the biggest struggle for the first timer that wants to do
Sure.
this, but doesn't know, oh, I got to build up more cash. I got to do more transactions first so I can build up some cash before I can start, right?
Yeah,
And that's where I think you guys come in to explain what your real options are.
sure. And, I think what you mentioned is, people think they need tons and tons of cash to get into their first property. But, one solution could actually have a minimal cash requirement. And if you start by house hacking, and what I mean by that is if you bought a property that maybe is a duplex or that you can turn into a duplex, essentially you're living in one unit of the property and renting out another unit or another, maybe you've converted the basement into a suite and you've put some money into creating a separate entrance. You can get into that property with essentially 5% down. And so that is a minimal outlay. And if you don't have that, you can create a joint venture. So you could partner with somebody who does have capital while you bring the deal and the expertise and share in the profits of that. Or another thing is implementing the BRRRR strategy, perhaps, which is buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And so what does that mean? It means perhaps buying a property that's distressed that you find that's under market value, perhaps, renovate, refinance that property, like put a tenant in it, excuse me, put a tenant in it. Thus, you're increasing the value of that property and refinance that property at the higher now forced appreciated value, and then pull out capital that you've put into it, and then repeating that process. This helps build equity quite fast. But the key is really, start with what you have, and whether that's your market knowledge, industry relationships, or the ability, which we teach you, to be able to spot and really source out undervalued deals before anyone else.
And Gord, you touched on one of the profit centers, which is leverage, right? So for only
Yeah.
5% down, you can buy, 100% of an asset. Try walking to a bank and asking them for a loan to buy their stock. They're never gonna give you that loan, but you can leverage 5% to get 100% control of an asset that can work for you forever. And I think your idea of doing a joint venture with somebody that does have that 5%, if you don't have that 5%, is a great way of doing it. And even, borrowing money and doing the burst strategy and then refinancing and taking that money back and paying it back. And all of a sudden, you have a property that you have none of your own money in. You have you've forced some appreciation into it, and you now have some really good cash flow. And you can do the same thing with another property. I mean, these are all great strategies, and I think realtors need to really budget and plan, and make this part of their business plan. Like, okay, I'm going to do $200,000 this year. Great, that's great, right? But what are you going to do with that money to invest into your future so that you can keep leveraging and keep, those wheels spinning faster? So I would say to a realtor, buy one investment property this year. Just buy one. Or like Gord said, a house hack if you don't have the ability to buy one property, then buy a property where you can put in a suite. Buy a triplex where you can rent two of the units, live in one of the units, and take that first step, because we know the minute you take that first step, you're going to be hooked, and you're going to get the investor bug. You're going to want to do another property. And listen, if you do this for yourself, it's so much easier to be able to say to your client, hey, listen, you can do it too, because I did it. And let me show you the steps I took. Let me show you, what this did to me financially. Let me sit down. Let me show you my numbers to show you what my investment property is doing for me. And let me show you, where I'm going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years with my property. And you can do exactly the same thing for yourself.
Yeah, it's infectious, for sure. And when you're able to understand that and explain those numbers, it's so much easier to get client buy-in, to be able to demonstrate that and have the confidence, and your clients are seeing that you're in the game, and as realtors, you have such an advantage because you're in the game. You can see, if you understand how to evaluate, but you can see the best deals before the public does. You understand market cycles, and you'll learn to understand financing options, because financing is obviously a big part of every real estate transaction, and the numbers, they are a part of the analysis, right? So you're able to understand that. And, if you think about it, the public is hiring you as an agent to guide them, but realtors you need to be your own best client. But the problem is most agents don't think like investors. They think like salespeople. But like you said, David, if an investor buys just one investment property, maybe per year, in 10 years, you'll have a multi-million-dollar portfolio. And that's the difference between a realtor who's forced to work forever versus one who's financially free.
That's great advice. And I think if I'm a realtor watching this, listening to this, I think you'd be convinced that it's a good thing to do. And the simple way to get going on it and to start on it is you got to get educated, because from what you're telling everybody is there isn't one strategy that works for everything. There's a whole bunch of options, and there's different strategies for different opportunities depending on their personal circumstances, their connections, whether they can do a JV, whether they can't. There's all these various strategies. The only way you're going to learn about all these strategies is to get educated and take the course and understand it from your own perspective. And then you could also understand and be educated for your potential investor client's perspective. And then you're off to the races, on two different fronts, on your personal capacity and your capacity as a realtor that understands investing. And it's a win-win, but it all starts with being educated first.
100%. And I mean, David, the first step for realtors is to make the decision to stop making excuses. And we hear it all the time. I don't have enough money. I'm too busy. I need to focus on my business. But here's the truth. Your business is real estate. So if you're selling it, why wouldn't you own it? So you need to find a strategy that fits your situation. If you have little capital, start with house hacking or a joint venture. You need to leverage your network, your mortgage brokers. You need to have contractors and lawyers like David Korman who already understand how to work with investors. And then treat your investments like your best clients. You know, if you're willing to show 50 houses to a buyer, why wouldn't you put the same effort into finding your own investment and consequently creating or investing in the education to get you to understand how to choose those investments? Because when you're choosing investments for yourself knowledgeably, you'll be able to also do that for your clients.
Yeah, Gord, I think in closing, can't stress this enough. You know, realtors don't have a pension plan. And like you alluded to earlier in an earlier episode, I've never been to a realtor retirement party.
Right.
I've never been to a realtor retirement party. And, I think we're going to change that. I think realtors that make the decision to invest in themselves are going to see a massive return beyond their wildest dreams, beyond their wildest expectations. And look, when you come from a position of abundance, when you don't have to worry about where your next client is coming from, when you have bank in your bank account, you can be choosy or picky with who you want to work with. If there's somebody that's not aligning with your morals, with your values, if there's somebody that is tougher to deal with, then you can say, look, we agree to disagree, and I'm going to make another recommendation. I'm going to recommend you to, my colleague in the office. We're not a good fit for each other. I'm going snowmobiling, or I'm going to the beach, or I'm going to go and, do yoga today, and I'm going to, hold myself to a higher level and really only attract those clients that I really want to work with that have the same morals and values and fall into my dream client state. And if you can get to that level, you're gonna love your life, you're gonna love your business, and everything is gonna be much, much simpler.
If I may, I do want to say, from a client perspective, who would they rather hire? A realtor who just sells houses or a realtor who owns multiple investment properties and knows how to build wealth through real estate? So clients trust experience. When you walk the walk, you attract an investor clients, you attract referrals, you attract, you'll be engaged in higher level conversations. And we've seen realtors double their income just because they've become that go-to investment expert in their market. And investors are repeat clients. They buy multiple properties and they stick with agents who, know what they're doing. So if you're listening right now, you already know that real estate is the best wealth building vehicle out there. So my challenge to every realtor is to stop waiting. Call the Real Estate Investment Institute, book a one-on-one meeting. There's no pressure. You'll just learn about how the program works and how we help agents, 10x their business and really change their mindset, change their life. Because, every day you wait, you're missing opportunities. The best time to invest was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Well, Gord, thank you so much for being with us. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and you've made it this far. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And like always, David Korman and I, we want to hear from you. So send us your questions, send us your feedback, and glad to have you guys on this journey with us. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.